It's like the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson right now. You paid a guy 10 years, $120 million. You're not going to bench him, but he's not playing good football. His first week was awful. When he came back last year, he wasn't the greatest. And it's sunken cost effect. We put all this money into Deshaun Watson as the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. We're not just going to flush that money down the toilet. We're going to get what we can out of him, but the backup might be the better solution. It's just it's tough to say, hey, I was wrong.
Welcome back to the North Florida Wrestling Show. I am your host, Jordan Cone. I have again with me Jason Weslager over at Grappling House. Jason, welcome back.
What's up, Jordan?
Not much, man. All right, we are talking about one of the big issues in all of wrestling. Right now, essentially to college, but it is slowly creeping into all aspects of it. NIL, name, image, likeness. It's been a game changer since it's been approved a couple years back, and it just seems like it's adding, continually giving more questions as to the future of college athletics. All right, so Jason, what do you think of NIL so far, just as a brief overview?
I think it's brought us NCAA college football 2025 on Xbox and PS5, so that's been great. Um, but aside from that, I think it's awesome. Um, at the college level, I was a college athlete. It is pretty difficult to go through, specific to wrestling, but really any sport. It I've always said it's a full time job. You're essentially 6 a.m. workout, at least 3 days a week. You're doing a 6 a.m. lift or run or something. Then you hit your breakfast, then you hit classes, then you're immediately into practice, then you're immediately into study hall or doing homework or studying for a test or whatever. So you're truly intermixing full-time student with full-time job, and it's impossible, not impossible, but it's very, very unlikely to then go out and get a job to bring in a couple extra dollars. So I love the NIL in that, you can kind of use the brand that you've built for yourself over the years, or the name that you've kind of created for yourself, just to supplement the couple little things that you need money for in college. I'm going to take a girl on a date. It's hard to do if you don't have two nickels to rub together, and tons of college kids are in that boat. And so in that aspect, I love it. And then trickling down to high school, um, I think it's pretty cool. The big name kids are getting paid earlier, and good for them. They put in the work, they put in the time, and if you make something for yourself and people want to pay you to advertise their product or just be a part of their brand, more power to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you were saying too. It's basically like having a job. It's not really basically, it is a job. Like a lot of these kids, especially the top tier athletes, not just Division 1, Division 2, like really any top tier college athlete, you can't differentiate what they do from a full time job, right? Like you said, they're waking up earlier than everybody else. They're putting in time that other people aren't putting in, studying, and then making sure that they're getting other stuff done. So I definitely agree that's going to give that opportunity to some kids. And I think that's another big misconception is like, we hear a lot of big numbers that and not even confirmed. I know like Carter Starachi was saying that he got that $1.3 million bag, and no real confirmation is made of that. But there are some people that are going to get way more. Like that one kid that's getting like I forget however much to go to Iowa for like a semester.
I
It's
can't remember the name,
yeah,
but yeah.
but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's crazy. Which brings me into like another point. That's gonna be something that's another minefield that these college coaches are gonna have to navigate. Because just even off of that subject, I would be furious if I was a kid on the Iowa team that just All American the year before, made it to the finals the year before, and then some kid comes in and gets all these like perks for
Yep.
to wrestle for a semester or for a year. Like I would consider leaving, with the transfer portal in conjunction with NIL. Like I would leave. I would
Yeah.
look elsewhere. I'd be like, okay, you guys don't value, the contribution to the team, and it's not even in scholarship now. Now this is talking about cold hard cash in your pocket, right? A car,
Right.
an apartment, right? Because NIL goes way beyond just cash. It is nuts what I'm hearing with
Right.
them.
Yeah, it's funny you mention Iowa because that's exactly what is happening there right now. I'm not going to pretend like I knew the insider information on it and all that, but whomever they just brought in, I can't remember the name. They brought in a few guys, and there's longtime kids there that couple time Iowa State champ that thought he had a shot at the spot, and now somebody just got paid to come there. And the point was brought up. Somebody, I was reading a Facebook post about it in one of the Facebook wrestling groups, and somebody said, "Well, why wouldn't they just go win the wrestle off? If you're trying to become the best in the country, just go win the wrestle off." And somebody else made a really important point that I think, if you're getting paid, I don't know, let's just say $500,000 to go take the 141 spot at Iowa, you're probably not wrestling off. And I could be wrong about that, and that guy, whoever made that comment, could be wrong about that. But if put yourself in the shoes of the program or the Iowa Boosters, or insert name, school name here, Boosters. If you just paid a kid $500,000 to come wrestle 141 for you, you're not going to let that $500,000 sit on the bench. You paid him $500,000 so that he comes and hopefully All Americans and boosts your team standings at the end of the NCAA tournament. And so I think a lot of those kids feel real slighted because they've put in 2, 3, 4 years, and now so and so from Boise State or wherever just transferred over, and now you don't really have a shot at what you've been working for. And so that's tough. That it definitely has a drawback to it, where the more money that gets thrown out, the less opportunity there are going to be for your kids that wanted to work their way into a spot.
Well, I mean that's a great point, because I think there's some that's again, that's another minefield for the coach staff to worry about, because what do you do if you, like the example that you have a 141 pounder, you're paying $500,000 to come in, and then every day in practice your backup's just maybe not ragdolling them, but you can tell that the backup is a little bit better. And then what's like when that backup comes to you and says, "Hey, what's going on? I'm putting him on his back. I'm, beating him, in every live wrestling. I'm, like that puts in a weird position. Because then
Yeah.
who does that coach go to? I mean, is it his call, or is it It's definitely opened up a whole Pandora's box of things that a coach has to consider going forward. One of the
Well,
oh, good.
I was going to say, it's like to refer it to the NFL, it's like the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson right now. You paid a guy 10 years, $120 million. You're not going to bench him, but he's not playing good football. His first week was awful. When he came back last year, he wasn't the greatest. And it's like, what is it called, sunken cost effect or something like that. It's like, we put all this money into Deshaun Watson as the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. We're not just going to flush that money down the toilet. We're going to get what we can out of him, but the backup might be the better solution. It's just it's tough to say, hey, I was wrong. We paid the wrong kid. We made a mistake, so let's go ahead and fix it and just lose a bunch of money. You don't. It's hard to do.
I will, yeah. I mean, so another thing that kind of goes in conjunction with, like, cause, and here's, I keep on saying this goes in conjunction with this and this, but there's so much stuff that are going on that once it's added, it changes the complexity of the conversation. So 30 spots, right? I know that just recently became a thing of like, all right, unlimited scholarship, but you're only allowed to
Mm-hmm.
have 30 kids on the team. A lot of people started going at that like it was a bad thing, and I kind of think I joined that camp at first, but the more I thought about it, the better I think it is for wrestling overall. Because instead of having 70 kids trying their hand to go be at Penn State, now it's only 30. So maybe that kid that is, very good and is that, diamond in the rough, doesn't end up at Penn State, but maybe he goes to that smaller school that has a coach that is a better fit for him, or a program that is a better fit, but just didn't have that Penn State name on it. Um, I think
Agreed.
that opens the opportunity to where if you get a guy like Grant Leaf that's going to be heading the D1 program in Texas at Tarleton State University. That
Hmm.
dude is a hustler. He's a businessman. He's an entrepreneur. He got to have a couple good years. He's the type of person that can go to TSU and be like, hey, listen, invest in what we're doing. Let's buy a team. Let's buy the best team we can. Top 30. Maybe not trying to, very moneyballish. Not maybe not trying to buy a
Yeah,
Penn State, but being like, where can we buy the best people that fit, right? And I
that's a
think,
good point.
yeah, I think we could. That's everybody's like, oh, Penn State, Penn State, Penn State. Penn State can't. They're not going to buy everybody, right? And it's
Yeah,
so I would love to see that some team that comes out of nowhere that just made the smart moves, recruited the right people, find the right walk-ons, buy the right puzzle pieces, and then just all of a sudden it's like, oh man, how is Tarleton State in the top 10 at the NCAA tournament?
that's an awesome point that I never really thought of, and I'm surprised it hasn't begun yet. And I think it has begun at the NCAA football level, where we're paying for the quarterbacks are a couple $1 million, whatever. Um, but I'm surprised a team hasn't come out with a great amount of funding and just gone, all right, we're a new program. No one's ever heard of whoever, whatever the heck our school name is, and we're just going to go pick off 8 All-Americans from all these different schools. It's going to cost us $6 million for our lineup, but we're going to be in the top five immediately. I don't know why that hasn't happened yet, and it probably just because wrestling's still kind of, I don't want to say fringe sport, but it's not NCAA football. There's not as much money in it as basketball and football, but there are plenty of rich benefactors out there that went to a school, wrestled at a school, and now have 50 million bucks in their pocket, and uh, might want to see their alma mater compete like that. I know Michigan at the NCAA level, wrestling has recently done a lot of grabbing graduating seniors, putting them in their grad program, and getting a lot out of them. And I don't know if they were paid or not, but I'm surprised this startup hasn't done that yet, and that's going to be interesting to watch happen because it will happen. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could see, maybe a program that was very good, but maybe in the last couple of years hasn't, been, or maybe kind of dropped off in the last 10, 20 years. I could see them just like you're saying, hey, let's start new. Let's boom, let's do this. Let's do it the right way, or slowly start implementing those people over time and getting that culture built in. They might do it slowly, or they might pull a
Mhm.
I don't know if you're a hockey fan, but like a Las Vegas Knights thing their first year, kind of like what you're saying,
Yeah,
make the right moves, steal the right people, like that one the
Marc
finalist
Andre
for
Fleury,
Iowa.
buddy.
Yeah, dude. I'm telling you, like dude, like Iowa finalist, like that'd be the perfect one to go over. Like, hey, you mad at the Brands brothers right now? Come and wrestle for us. I'll pay you. I'll pay you some cheese.
Yeah,
And then boom, you have an NCAA finalist. And once you get one, once you get two, once you get three, then everybody's like, I believe in the dream. Um,
right. I wanted
so
to say
that
one more thing on that,
good.
real quick before we move on. The roster of 30, I like the point you made about it. One other thing I could see happening with the limiting of rosters is the idea that it could potentially force us to add more programs, right? So as the numbers continue to grow in the sport, and as the number of kids that want these opportunities for D1 continue to grow, if you're limited at 30 at Penn State, right, in Pennsylvania, there's like 11 Division 1 programs. Why not 12? Why not somebody throw in a couple programs there, or Florida State, or all these others? If there's not a ton of opportunities and the rosters nearby are limited to 30 now instead of 70, you may see others start to add programs. And the reason is, if there's 30 kids versus 70 kids, financially it's less costly to run your program because now you're worrying about 40 less people. You don't need a gigantic, massive $4 million facility like Iowa and Penn State have because there's 30 kids. I could fit 30
True.
kids in
That is
a
true. I didn't think about
in
that.
a 2,000 square foot wrestling room and make it work. Like as a college, I don't have to invest a ton of resources anymore. And it might be more fiscally responsible to go ahead and add wrestling now that I know there's a fixed cost of 30 wrestlers, and I know what my travel costs are going to be, and I know what my, I know all the things, or at least I have a better idea of all the things. And yeah, so I could see that kind of getting us to add some programs, which obviously is the goal.
Well, so and you kind of sparked a thought in my mind. Like, so you say that you
Yep.
have that school that's supporting 70 male wrestlers, and they bring it down to 30. Now they have a budget cleared up to like, okay, let's start a women's program. 30 and
Right.
30 is still less than 70. That's a that. Like I said, I could see this being the 30 working its way with everything else to be a big growth for us. So the question,
I
and
agree.
last thing we'll talk about on the NIL. So I put this question on the Wrestling Room Facebook page as well as the Florida Wrestling Room Facebook page, and I'm surprised a lot of people didn't think about this. So with these schools that now have the money to offer students, and I know that there's some hurdles to go with this one, but how long before we see some international students looking at what's going on in America and being like, well, I'm a really good wrestler. I could figure out folk style, or like a kid that maybe is a U16 right now, U14, and
Hmm.
seeing these kids get paid. Be like, yeah, I'm gonna start putting feelers out, right? I'm gonna like, hey, does anybody? Because I saw I think it was one of the Japanese wrestlers saying like, hey, can I get a book on folk style rules and all that? And that's what sparked him. Like,
Mm.
how long before we see these outstanding wrestlers from Dagestan, Japan, Mongolia, be like, all right, hey, I got a rich family over here. They can afford to send me over there, and these colleges can afford to pay me the bag. I think this could be a possible in for folk style to start rising on an international level.
Yeah. I mean, or the flip side of what you just said is, I instead of my parents being rich and can afford to, my family is dirt poor. We live in XYZ country, and they could really use, my family could really use me sending back some money. Let me go put my wrestling skills, on display over at XYZ College in America and get paid $1 million to do it.
What?
I hadn't thought of that, but it's a really good point. There's no reason it can't happen, and I mean the 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 freestyle to folk style transition is much harder than the folk to free because folk style is so much more about control, and the top and the bottom game matter a lot more. But with the 3 point takedown now too, it wouldn't be very difficult for somebody internationally to come over and figure folk style out and kind of make it an international NCAA. That's interesting thought and something that definitely could happen. If I were an NCAA coach, I 100% would be trying to recruit internationally instead of just in America.
Wait, 2 points off of that, man. So they even got to pay like these kids from these like less fortunate countries. They don't have to pay them millions of dollars. 10K, 15K, 20K goes a long way
Hmm.
in Dagestan, Uzbekistan.
Yeah,
Maybe even start getting some of these wrestlers from where is it, Senegal? The Senegalese wrestlers, man, those dudes are jacked. You can get them over there and they'll figure it out. But
I'm saying.
another thing that was kind of going off of is so we have folk style, right? But let's branch it over to the women's side, right? Women's are wrestling freestyle in college as of now, so that would be an
Hmm.
easy transition for one of these all star Japanese female wrestlers, or again Mongolia and India, to come over here and be able to. There would be no learning curve. It would just be straight up a freestyle
Yeah,
match. Like, so
yeah,
we could see that. I know that there's barriers and everything, and one of the big things people kept on, trying, not just playing devil's advocate, saying like, oh well, there's visa issues, there's this, there's this, there's this. So I was like, do you know how much money can change stuff in like time? And
yeah,
like, then I'm trying to think 5 to 10 years on, because NIL isn't going away, right? It's not
right.
going away. We haven't even broached, the effect on youth sports yet. So
I agree.
it's something that I think we got to get ahead of the conversation, rather than figure out as it goes, because it's got some good, it's got some bad.
For sure. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out, but there's I think there's a lot of good to it. And overall my impression is that it's going to be a good thing uh, in the long run, but I think the biggest barrier you have right now is to do a lot of the things that we're talking about require some benefactors or some very good fundraising, and unless you have an alma mater or an alumni that has that money, there's not a ton of money in winning an NCAA wrestling title at the moment. There is a lot of money in winning an NCAA football title. There's a ton in winning an NCAA basketball title. So I think just as the sport grows, you're going to just see it continue, and eventually there may be a good bit of advertising dollars and TV deals in winning an NCAA wrestling title, and it'll just explode. But it takes time.
Yeah, well, we'll be here, man. We'll be here watching it. We'll save the youth NIL for another episode, because I feel like that's a whole other can of worms that's gonna that we're gonna have to talk about at length. But man, thanks for coming on again and talking about the NIL. It's been fun. I'm excited to see it. We got a lot of good ideas. Got a lot of good ideas that some college coaches should be listening to if they want to get ahead of the game. But man, I appreciate the ideas.
Agreed. Yeah, man, it was a good conversation. And, appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon, bud.
Hell yeah! All right, I'm gonna get this stuff.